So we're going to start this discussion on building a face that's based on blend shapes by talking about two different possible approaches to doing that. One is building shapes that are very granular. And in that sense, what you'd be doing with your blend shapes is you'd basically be trying to mimic what we did with the local controls, where you could move a particular portion of the brow, for instance, to achieve the shape that you want. The other option is to have a global shape where you would create a blend shape target that would globally drive the brow or the mouth or whatever into one shape. Typically, that shape will be much more complex, and so you'd want to dial in that shape without having to force the animator to dial in multiple shapes. They each have benefits and shortcomings. The benefits with the granular shapes is it gives the animator, as it would imply with the name, it gives the animator much more control over fine-tuning that particular shape. So, let's say a lead animator could go in and create a particular angry brow shape. But if each of those shapes, if that one shape is made up of multiple targets, then an animator can go in and adjust each of the targets that is used to create that one shape so that they can finesse it and fine tune it to meet their own needs for that particular pose. The downside is that it requires a lot more controls and a lot more manipulation to achieve that one single shape. So for the broad shapes, the global shapes, the benefit of that is with one control, one slider, an animator can create a very complex face shape. For instance, you could have an angry brow shape that brings down a portion of the brow, which also activates vertices in the forehead. You could also have it, squeeze down the eyelids, as well as the nostrils, pull some of that nostril skin upward to reflect the constriction of the muscle in that area. That one shape can be very complex, and you can tie that to one slider. So there's a benefit there. Once again, the downside is with that one shape, you often lose the ability to go in and fine tune that one particular shape. So I'll show a quick example on this brow of what we mean by granular versus global. Let's open the hypergraph. I have a series of shapes here. Let's look at the granular shapes first. It's very rough and simple. I have the left brow, the inner up, the second innermost moving up, moving out toward the outer edge, then lastly the outer edge moving up. So an animator could go in and create, for instance, like a perplexed look by adding in a little bit of this shape, a lot of that shape, maybe a little of that. And then you could bake that into a pose or record those values into a pose, and then the animator will be able to go in and with the four controllers sort of, finesse and fine-tune that one pose that they're given by a lead animator or something that they've created earlier. So next we have a global shape. In this case, we have the inner brow lowering down some, the upper brow or the outer brow raising. Then we have a little bit of a little bulge there, show a little bit of constriction. The vertices are moving forward and back ever so slightly. But then what we can't do is we don't have the granular controls on top of that. So I'm going to use both of these targets, or sets of targets. I've selected all of them, the granular as well as the global shape. I'm going to apply it to the head geometry. Once again, all the targets are selected first, and then I selected the base shape last. I'm going to select Deform, Create Blend Shape, open the option box. Just give it a quick name. Call this left brow. We're going to leave it on local, leave check topology on. They're all duplicates of this original head. Hit Create. So now we have the left brow blend shape node as an input. Okay, I'll zoom into the brow a bit here. So I'm going to go to Window, Animation Editors, Blend Shape. So now we can see all the blend shapes that we just created. The 4 granular brow controls, as well as the 1 global brow control. There we can dial them all the granulars in, see what we get there. And the 1 global shape. Okay. Now notice one thing here. When I'm activating this 1/4 granular brow control, it's activating some verts that we really don't want it to work on. So that's an easy fix, and it will show another tool, which is the ability to paint the weight values of a blend shape. So I'm going to select the mesh, then select a form, paint blend shape weights tool. Let's open the option box. Let's move this out of the way. Okay, so that's the brow up 4 shape. So we're going to select that. I have the brush set to full opacity, a solid brush. I'm going to set my weights to the replace operation and set it to 0, since we want to get rid of all of the influence of that blend shape. So just very broadly paint that out. So I'll move it to 1, so we'll paint it back in. And you can see that vert there moving, some verts there moving up. This is a quick way of editing out little mistakes. Okay. So once again, we have a lot of granular control here. Once again, these are very rough shapes here, but an animator can go in and fine tune the shapes that they want. Okay. Then next we have the global shape, which when applied lowers the inner brow, raises the outer brow, and creates a little bulge as well. So quickly we're going to show another one of the benefits of this more granular approach. Its ability to more easily just sort of cascade shapes across something like the brow. So I'm going to key this first shape at 0. Just do 5 frame increments. So I'm keying the first and the second. I'm just advancing 5 frames each time. This is a very crude, animation test here. Okay. So you can see how you can easily cascade across the brow with these more granular shapes. It's just a part of the flexibility with these more granular controls. Whereas with the global, that's a lot more difficult. You could build a system that will take the global controls and then you still have these granular controls on top of it. So there, we're going in and using the granular controls to augment this global control. So the two systems can work together. So there's a quick example of the granular versus global, but they don't need to work exclusively of each other. You can have global controls as well as a set of granular controls and mix and match the two to get exactly the shapes you want, using the global controls to create very broad expressions. For instance, if you're going to have a smile, you could add a little crease here, move the nostril. But then you'd have all the granular controls to go in and finesse the lip shape, the nostril shape, so forth and so on. So once again, they're two different systems, two different ways of working, but they can work hand in hand. Often you'll see a more granular approach, and once again, that's because you're basically mimicking the animation controls, which tend to be more granular. And also you're mimicking the facial muscle structure. So you'll have a number of controls for each region of the face, and then sort of mix and blend between them to get exactly where you want. But there's nothing saying that you can't have both of them. Very broad global controls, and then the granular on top of them. And there are ways, although not quite as predictable and controllable, where you can mix direct controls with the blend shapes so that they sort of ride along with the blend shapes and then allow you, in a pretty rough manner, to sort of have more granular control on top of them.